Hey guys, it's Kat and I'm back today for a review of a bit of a controversial palette. It is the Morphe Jaclyn Hill Palette. I didn't want to do this review as a first impressions. I did do a sort of like a live chat using this for the first time, but the funny thing about that was I was in a rush and I buggered up the settings, so I didn't actually make it a live chat. I just kind of filmed it live and then uploaded it. So that's around on my channel somewhere. And I kind of think that my first impressions of that, I still have those sort of same feelings, but I wanted to give this a really good shot before I did give a review, because when this first came out, there was an abundance of reviews out there, and I know a lot of them, I didn't watch many of them at all. I didn't want it to sort of taint my opinion of this, but I know that a lot of people were either praising it as being like the best palette ever or really slagging it off, and there was a lot of accusations thrown around that people were either saying that it was great because they were friends with Jaclyn Hill, or people were saying it was bad just to get like views. So I kind of wanted that to die down. I wanted to give it a shot, and then I wanted to come back to you with my opinion of this. Now, I'm also a fan of Morphe palettes in general. My favorite is the 35T palette, and even after using this, my favorite hasn't changed. So it says something about this, but I'm just going to give you some background. So essentially, Jaclyn Hill said that she was working with Morphe for years to create a new formula and to create this palette, and it's sort of like not her favorites. She'd previously done a Morphe favorites palette where she picked her favorite shades and created her own palette. This is her designing her own palette. Now, this is a limited edition palette, and it is currently about to be re-released on the 22nd of August. So I wanted this review to go up before then. That will be the third release. I got my palette on the second release, and at that time, I had to wait up until 1 AM to order it. You could only order one palette per order, which was really annoying because Haley and I both wanted a palette, and it meant that we had to pay shipping separately. Now, shipping to Melbourne was about $30 US, which is utterly appalling and ridiculous. This palette is also more expensive than your average Morphe palette, so I think it's around $40. I think together with shipping it was around $70 US, which is a lot of money for a Morphe palette. They're notorious for being quite an affordable palette. This one's not affordable, but even in the second release, it's sold out within 45 minutes. So if you do want it, you will have to stay up. I think it releases 8 AM Pacific Standard Time, something like that. I'll put the details in the description box, but it will be released again. It's coming up on the 22nd of August. If you want to pay shipping, it's up to you, but I'm going to let you know what I think about this palette. I do want to say though that shipping was relatively quick. I think I received this within a week of placing the order. I have also since placed an order for Jaclyn Hill's favorite brush set because this came back on sale, like it was released again, and it comes with 23 brushes and this brush case. So yeah, I'm clearly not opposed to buying Morphe products. I don't have an affiliate. They don't know who the fuck I am, and I'm not opposed to doing things with like Jaclyn Hill collaboration. So this brush set's actually really cool. Opens up like that, so you can use it as a tray, and all the brushes seem really, really nice. So I actually much prefer this purchase than this purchase, to be honest. All right, let's start with the packaging because I think it's really, really bad. Now, this is a cardboard packaging. It's got, I don't know if you can see it properly, but it's got, the back just has JH in some basic font, just kind of moved around like a print. Then it says Morphe x Jaclyn Hill. It's quite grubby because you literally just have to touch it and it gets messy. Mine has a little like dent in it. It's not the best quality cardboard. And then the front, it literally just has her signature in a silver metallic font, and then it says the Jaclyn Hill palette in just basic font. It is, I don't like it. So I just thought I'd mention this compared to the original sort of 35 palettes because these are plastic. It's not the most dirty plastic in the world, but it is a lot better than this. I just thought that since they're charging a lot more for this palette, and they upped their shipping and all that kind of stuff. Mind you, the shipping was more expensive for this than it was for my brushes, going to the same location. So I feel like when this is released, they bump up the shipping a little bit. I don't get it, it's weird. But yeah, so it's a cardboard thing. You can't put this back, that's the furthest back it goes. It doesn't have a mirror in the lid, and once again, in just some basic font, it says, "This palette is dedicated to all my loving subscribers, XO Jaclyn." Now, I do think that's sweet, and if you are a subscriber of Jaclyn Hill, I'm sure you'll really appreciate that. I appreciate all my loving subscribers too, and there's a difference between subscribers and loving subscribers. I don't think you have to love the people that just watch you to hate on you. I think you don't have to love them, but I think that's a nice little nod to her subscribers. You know, they get her these opportunities, they make her the money, so why not? This has a kind of a weak magnetic closure. It's got just small magnets just in the corners, so it is a bit flimsy. Once again, the original palettes have like a clip closure, so I think this is a lot more sturdy. The box that it comes in also has the same design on the front, but then it's got Jaclyn's face, making faces, doing stuff on the back, and also saying that, you know, creating this palette's my dream, da 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 da, and it's the JH2, so it's the second Jaclyn Hill palette. It's also got the ingredients down the side. They did change the ingredients for this palette, and it is, like, if you go to the website, I might put it on the screen, but you can see a difference between the ingredients. So it's not as if they've just chosen the same Morphe quality of the normal palettes and put it into this palette. They have actually changed the formula. All right, so this is a 35 palette. So just like any 35 palettes, it's got 35 eyeshadow shades, and it's got a mix between metallics. It's got like satins, not really satins, I guess just less metallic, shimmery but less metallic, and a bunch of mattes. And you know, if you know Jaclyn Hill, you know that she likes warm eyeshadows. So the majority of the palette is a warm eyeshadow palette. Now this, if you take away these kind of pops of color in the corner, which is what I'm wearing on my eyes today, it looks very much just like a 35O palette. So they do have palettes that have just a lot of oranges in it, but the formula is slightly different. Now, these don't have names on them, so you just have to kind of refer to first row, fourth shade in. But, you know, it is what it is. Okay, so what I like about this palette, of course I like the mix of mattes and shimmers and these kind of really highly metallic eyeshadows, because I think that those highly metallic ones generally are Morphe's best eyeshadows. And I like that this has a wide range of colors. Now, when you look at it, it looks like you've got more of a wide range than when you actually start playing with it. And I'll talk about that in a second. But you kind of go, okay, some light shades, some light kind of transition colors, some nice shimmery pinks, some warm kind of crease colors, some deeper colors, some more reds. You got some shimmery ones, you got some matte ones. Then you got some sort of taupey nudes. You're going into some more bronzy colors down here, purple, blue, shimmery teal, a matte teal, some dark colors down here. You've got a nice shimmery kind of forest green, a really, really dark, gorgeous green, chocolate browns, and black. So you go from pretty much most things you need in one palette is in this. And I do like that, because if you look at the other palettes, like I've got the 35OS, which is the orange one, but it's all shimmer. You can see that it does also have like lights and darks, but it pretty much goes, there's heaps of similar lights, heaps of similar darks, and heaps of similar sort of like warm shades. There's not much variety in these sort of palettes, and you'll see it even more so with the tea palette, which is actually my favorite one. This is the taupe palette, and it's got mattes and shimmers, but it's got even less variety. So you can see it's pretty much just taupe. I like it because these are my favorite colors to wear on my eye, but it's pretty much, you know, you kind of go, why are you having 35 shades when you can just cut out half of them and get the same result? So that's always been my problem with Morphe eyeshadow palettes. So I like the fact that you open up this one, you go, oh, there is more going on. There's more going on. So yeah, you can get a variety of looks from this, and clearly this was designed to suit Jaclyn's taste, and we've got different taste. But I do see some, not double ups in this, because there are definitely different, all the shades are different, but they're, on the eye, a lot of these look quite similar. And that's where I think the variety is, what looks like a lot of variety, I think when you start playing with it, you start realizing there's not that much. So for example, these two shimmery shades, I'll show them to you. You can see that one is slightly cooler, one is slightly more yellow, so one's more silver, one's more yellow, but on the eye they sort of give the same effect. And one thing that I really that annoys me about this palette is I love to either set my base or highlight my brow bone with a matte sort of cream color, and it doesn't exist in this palette. 35 shades and there's no matte light shades, which I think is really frustrating. So why do you have two of those when there's no matte? I just don't get it. Then you have two sort of light transition colors. Once again, one slightly warmer, but they sort of look the same. And then it sort of starts looking a little bit like these transition shades underneath. I think you could have cut maybe 5 of those down to 2 and then put some more light matte shades. Similar, you got 3 shimmery pink shades, and even though one is more silvery, one has more of a kind of gold shift, and one is more of a peach. The peach and the gold shift one, same effect. I don't see why you need them both. Like, they're pretty similar. They're pretty similar. And then yeah, this rose, pretty similar. You've got some shimmery shades here, which I quite like. I just wanted to see more of them. And then you've got a bunch of warm, sort of deep matte shades. They all kind of look the same. Then you've got some like dark shades down here. Once again, you've got 3 browns that are varying in undertones, but they're all quite similar. I really like this green. I think that's a gorgeous green. That was a really smart move. It sort of just adds something a bit different to, like that one's there, gorgeous. Add something a little bit different to the looks. So yeah, there are some really nice shades, and I really applaud this dark green because you can use it with like a bronze or a brown or even a red to make a more, like a completely different look. So I think this palette does have variety in here, but there are some things that I find really lacking, like more bronzes and golds and sort of neutral colors, and definitely some light cream shades or just sort of skin tone shades for setting or highlighting your brow bone. So even though there is a lot of colors in here, I think there are some really redundant colors that look pretty much the same in the eye. All right, let's get to the swatches of these, and I'll do finger swatches for all of them. And then what I'll do is brush swatches for some shimmery shades versus some matte shades. Those are the swatches. I haven't done them yet, so I don't know what you're seeing, but essentially the formula of these isn't bad. I don't think it's Head and Shoulders like above other Morphe palettes. Now there are some notorious Morphe duds out there. There are some good palettes. I really like the two that I have, so the T and the OS. I don't love the shades in the OS, but the formula's fine. But what I think is different with this palette versus the other Morphe formula is that the metallics in here, or the really shimmery shades, are a lot more oily. So they swatch really, really nicely, and you pick them up and you go, oh, that's a really smooth, gorgeous eyeshadow. But it is quite dense, and it is quite, it's more moist than a normal eyeshadow, if that makes sense. These sort of remind me a little bit of the Chloe Morello Ciate palette, but not to that same degree. That was really dense and oily and hard to pick up with a brush. These aren't as bad. These are still a little bit harder to pick up with a brush than a normal Morphe eyeshadow, and that's where I think this is a little bit let down. I can get that there's a lot of pigment in it and it's rich, but the best way to apply this would be with your fingers, because sometimes I find when you use a brush, some shades don't deposit enough even color. You need to go back and build it up, and sometimes they apply quite patchy as well. So I actually prefer the original shimmery Morphe eyeshadow shades to these ones, which is a shame because they tried to ramp up the formula and make it a lot more luxurious. Now, in saying that, I do prefer these mattes. Now, they might have swatched a little bit patchy, but the good thing about them is they've got a nice amount of blendability, so you can pick it up. It's not super loose like the Subculture palette, but it's also, you can blend it really nicely, and you can also build it up. So you've got some control here. There's enough pigment to just put a little bit on if you just want to. It blends away nicely. But then if you want to build up certain areas, you can do that because they do build. So I think that the mattes in this far superior to the mattes in a normal Morphe palette, or not far superior, but just superior. But I prefer the shimmers in the original Morphe palettes than these, which is a shame. All right, I thought just quickly while I'm here, I thought to sort of demonstrate what I'm talking about. I'm going to swatch one of these with a Morphe brush, so you know they can't tell me I'm using it wrong. I'm just going to go for like a sort of a dark brown shade, and I'm, you know, putting it in quite a bit. Picks up a little bit of product, but not heaps. So that, I rubbed it in. How many times? I don't know, 8 something. And then if you go to put it on the skin, it goes on, but it's not with heaps of ease. There's a bit of rubbing. It doesn't just kind of blend on nicely. Whereas if I use that same brush on the other side and I go in with one of these shades, which is a little bit more powdery, a little less oily. So I'll go for a similar kind of shade, rub it in a few times. You can see the pigment that picks up. It's very different because it's a looser formula, and it does mean that you can sort of apply it in a more even manner, and it's just less kind of rubbing and more of a beautiful even finish. So yeah, I actually do prefer my normal Morphe palettes. When you look at the formula, that's a normal one. People say they're shit. I got it for, I think, about 30 bucks, and it's 35 shades, and they're very nice. And that's the reformulated ones. The reformulated ones might look richer when you swatch them, but when you actually apply them with a brush, they're not as nice. And that's my biggest issue about this palette. So yeah, I do think Jaclyn choosing the shades makes for a more versatile palette. It's not really exactly what I want in a palette, but it's not, doesn't say Cat on it, so it says Jaclyn Hill, not Cat Wilson. But I think you can get more from her palette than an ordinary, like Morphe 35 something palette. I find that Morphe tend to go, oh, let's make a purple palette, let's just take all the purple shades and put them in one palette. And you go, yeah, but you need to look at what goes with purple, how to create full eye looks. You need the light shades, the deep shades, maybe chuck in some browns and some greens that will complement. And they don't do that. So they just kind of go, oh, let's just put it all in one palette. So Morphe have always had an issue with their shade range in their palettes because it's always been really boring. But I think their quality, their basic palette quality is quite nice overall. So the Jaclyn one let me down a little bit because I am going, I want those other shimmery Morphe shadows instead of her new formula that cost me a lot more money, and the packaging is a lot shitter, and I don't know. So who would I recommend this to? Essentially, if you're a huge Jaclyn Hill fan and you want to support her, go for it. That's a great reason to buy this. If you love the colors and you look at it and you go, wow, that is everything I want in a palette. It's my perfect palette. I love heaps of warm shades, and I love light shimmery pinks, and I love a pop of blue, and I then, you know, definitely, if you think this is going to be a palette you're going to use a lot, it would be worth the investment. It's still not as expensive as like a MAC palette or Urban Decay palette or something like that. But if you thought that this was going to blow your socks off, and that 2 years of developing this new formula was going to be so amazing that you were going to reconsider whether you loved Morphe or not, this is not the palette that does it. I actually think the more simplistic, basic Morphe formula works better and is quicker to use, more simpler to use, and gives a better result in my opinion. So I like the variety of shades in this palette, the fact that you can do colourful looks, you can do reddy looks, you can do orangey looks, you can do yellowy looks, you can do a bit of green. The variety looks better than it actually is. But yeah, I like the variety in the palette versus other Morphe palettes, but I still prefer the original Morphe shimmery formula. And the mattes in the normal palettes aren't that bad either, so I don't know why people complain about them. So yeah, that's my review of the Jaclyn Hill Morphe palette. This is not a rave review. It's not a negative review. It's just a lukewarm review. It's an alright palette. If you bought it, you can definitely use it. You can create some beautiful looks out of it. But I personally still want to go back to my Morphe 35T palette, which says a lot about the new formula, if that makes sense. Alright guys, so until next time, have a great day, and I'll see you then. Bye!